Good morning, folks. Hopefully you all are having a really great day. Hopefully you all have been enjoying today, the summit itself, and that you all have been receiving a lot of beneficial information. Thank you so much for joining this session in particularly. And this is a session on leadership and advocacy. And just gonna share a couple of words regarding some experiences that I've had. Some experiences that have really been marked by different points of departure for me. I'm not sure if you all are familiar with points of departure, but points of departure are defined as the starting point of a line of thought or a course of action. It's either a shock, whether it's internal or external, that really allows you to push forward in one way or another in one capacity. I think this is really important, finding these points of departure for yourself, and being able to be in spaces that allow you for points of departure. I myself have had a good amount of them in the past. A couple of years ago, for example, if you all would have met me, I was at close to 400 pounds. I was able to lose 180 pounds in 8 months. And I've been able to lose over 200 pounds in over 10 months and have been able to keep it off. That in and of itself was a point of departure for me for many reasons. One being that the United States Olympic Committee asked me to join Team USA. Another that I found a love in running after never being able to do any sports whatsoever or being athletic. But I think one of the main reasons why this weight loss for me was extremely critical and monumental, and why I really do consider it to be a point of departure, again, which is a line of thought or a course of action that shakes you, right? And so this for me was both internal and external. And what that did for me was it shook me and it allowed me to really feel like I had a second chance at life and redirect a lot of my energy. And so for me, I have always been about community, building community, helping young adults, empowering young adults, because I myself was born in the southwest side of Chicago in a community that was disinvested, that was always left at the peripheries, that there were not a lot of resources. And so for me, this point of departure, this weight loss for me was, how can I help my community? How can I help others in my community? One of my favorite quotes is a Native American proverb, and it goes something along the lines of, we don't inherit this land from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. And I am very much to that, because how can I leave my community, my city, my state, and our country, our world, a better place for those that are yet to come? Toni Morrison once wrote, "None of us is alone. Each of us is dependent on others." And I very much agree with this. And, you know, in order for you to really be able to step up and come through, you want to have those points of departure that are going to allow you to propel for, yes, for yourself, but really for others and what you're doing for others. I have been an advocate for my community. I have stood up for my community, whether it's with immigration rights, whether it has been COVID and COVID resources and funding, because we knew how this pandemic was going to impact Black and Brown communities. And so for me, it's always been about paying it forward to others. And you know, this also includes the LGBTQIA community, but really how can we continue to bring resources for folks in disinvested communities? And I found myself being able to do that because of these points of departure that I had in life. I think I recently finished a program at Harris at the University of Chicago, and one of our professors, he's actually a doctor, he's a physician, and his name is Brian Williams, Dr. Brian Williams. He said, "It's not about us. We have to step in it for the greater good. Step up for those who will never be invited, never have a chance to get to the table where decisions are made." And if we're given opportunities to lead, if we're given opportunities to be able to elevate and support others, our families, our communities, then we should go ahead and do that. At the same time, we need to pause and make sure that we're okay, that we're taking care of ourselves. That's why my conversation today was listed as pause. but never stop. And I say that because you need to listen to yourself in order to really continue to level up, right? You can't continue going full 100% day after day, month after month, year after year, because it's just not sustainable. So pause when you need to and acknowledge that and realize that it is not a bad thing to pause, because it is necessary to recharge, recalibrate, but never stop. Right? You never want to. You never want to stop. Never stop learning. Never stop growing. Never stop questioning, and never stop being open-minded. Because I think that when you are this, when you are allowing yourself to learn, when you're allowing yourself to grow, when you're allowing yourself to ask questions, and when you're allowing yourself to be open-minded and listen to other perspectives, that only makes you a better being, a stronger individual, and you'll be able to accomplish a lot more. I know we're at time now. I believe we're going to be moved over to the other rooms. And I apologize if you all had issues in logging in, joining this session. But this picnic this picnic conversation was a 15-minute conversation, and I know we're going to be moved over to some others. But in the chat, really quickly, while we're being transitioned out, I believe, if anybody is willing to share and wanting to share, if you all have had a point of departure in your lives, has there been something that has monumentally changed your perspective, pivoted you in one way or another? You know, whether you thought you were going to be doing one thing in the future and you all of a sudden have found yourself wanting to do something else, or doing something else that you never necessarily planned. Feel free to drop anything, any points of departure in the chat box. I'd love to hear. Alrighty, folks. I think going back to the lobby of your sessions, you should be able to transition over to the second round. And just incredible. I appreciate that point that you shared in the chat box, that a teaching role by itself could not give me the income and flexibility I desire. So I would have to think outside of the box to get it. That's very, very true. You really do got to think outside the box. And I think this is a time that we've realized that a lot of the norms that maybe you were once told, or standards, no longer really apply anymore. They're no longer necessarily viable. And we can continue thinking outside the box because that's allowed.
And so we did get a question in our chat. Do you know any programs or organizations in New York I could join that center around social activism for low-income communities? I have been looking for resources in my area, but it's been particularly hard. So I'll have to think about this question a little harder, because I know some services, but I'm not sure of those that are focused around activism. I mean, Queens has the largest populations of ethnicities and cultures in the world. And I know there are a lot of organizations that primarily focus on populations that are living in Queens that don't necessarily have the resources needed to really support them, particularly because there are a lot of immigrant communities in Queens as well. And so I know there are a lot of organizations particularly devoted to supporting unique cultural and ethnic communities that are in Queens that are trying to find resources to be economically mobile. So I know there's a lot of organizations that have activism around specific ethnicities and cultures. Also know Opportunities for Better Tomorrow is a great organization that does some work in Queens. Make the Road is also in Queens. I know they do a lot of work around rights for immigrants and activisms around those causes. So those are a few organizations in the particular area that I know of that are doing some great work. And they'll be able to support you in finding other organizations if they aren't necessarily the right fit. Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, there are a lot of great workforce organizations out there. I mean, if anyone can let me know, like, what are your specific interests in work, whether you are interested in tech or interested in healthcare, interested in like construction or trades. There are organizations that kind of cover the gamut and all of the training. And in terms of like advocacy, I also know, obviously, Jobs First NYC does a lot of advocacy. Also, the New York City Employment Training Coalition does a lot of advocacy as well around work. Um, and so, if you're interested in specific advocacy around work, you can connect with Jobs First NYC, you can connect with the Employment Training Coalition, and we can definitely help support any of the efforts that you all are interested in when it comes to advocating for work. I am the policy, I oversee our policy operations at Jobs First NYC, and we've been advocating for local policymakers to really support young adults during the economic recovery of New York City, because we've learned that oftentimes when the city does develop strategies towards economic recovery, young adults aren't really at the heart or center in those recovery strategies. And so we've done a paper to really highlight specific things that young adults have been telling us that they need in order to be able to um, really be able to navigate the current economic downturn, to be able to still land into career ladders, successful jobs, or training opportunities that will ultimately lead to jobs. So I will share a link for this policy paper, and happy to speak with anyone if you are interested in these particular topics.